Dr. Sarah Chen stared at the official letter in her hands, the Department of Defense letterhead blurring as tears of rage filled her eyes. After 12 years of exemplary service as the Pentagon's leading intelligence analyst on Chinese cyber warfare, she was being placed on administrative leave, pending a psychological evaluation. The reason cited made her stomach churn: concerns regarding mental stability raised by immediate family members. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The irony wasn't lost on her. The woman who had prevented 3 major cyber attacks on American infrastructure, who held the highest security clearance possible, who briefed generals and senators on national security threats, was now being questioned about her sanity by the very people who had spent years trying to undermine her success. The call had come on a Tuesday morning while Sarah was deep in analysis of suspicious network traffic patterns that suggested a coordinated attack on the power grid. Her supervisor, Colonel Martinez, had requested her immediate presence in his office, his voice carrying an unusual tension that made her stomach tighten with apprehension. Sarah had walked through the corridors of the Pentagon with the confidence that came from being one of the most respected analysts in the building. Her colleagues nodded respectfully as she passed, many of them having benefited from her insights over the years. She had single-handedly developed the predictive algorithms that were now standard across all intelligence agencies, her work saving countless American lives and billions in economic damage. When she entered Martinez's office, she immediately sensed something was wrong. He couldn't meet her eyes, his usual warm demeanor replaced by uncomfortable formality. Beside him sat Dr. Rebecca Walsh from the Pentagon's Psychological Services Division, a woman Sarah had never met, but whose presence suggested this wasn't about her latest intelligence report. Martinez had cleared his throat and gestured to the chair across from his desk. The conversation that followed would replay in Sarah's mind for weeks afterward, each word carved into her memory with crystalline clarity. Her family, he explained, had contacted the Pentagon's security office with serious concerns about her mental health. They had provided detailed accounts of erratic behavior, paranoid delusions, and what they described as an unhealthy obsession with conspiracy theories. The accusations were as shocking as they were specific. According to her mother, Dr. Linda Chen, Sarah had been exhibiting signs of severe paranoia, claiming that foreign agents were following her and that her own government was monitoring her personal communications. Her brother David, a successful corporate lawyer in Seattle, had corroborated these claims, adding that Sarah had become increasingly isolated and suspicious of family members during recent visits. Most damaging of all was a statement from her sister Jennifer, a psychiatrist at Johns Hopkins, who had allegedly observed Sarah displaying classic symptoms of delusional disorder during their last family gathering. Jennifer had described episodes where Sarah spoke in rapid, incoherent bursts about classified information, seeming unable to distinguish between her professional responsibilities and personal paranoia. Dr. Walsh had been gentle but firm in explaining the protocol. Given Sarah's access to the most sensitive intelligence information in the country, any questions about her psychological stability had to be taken seriously. The evaluation would be thorough and fair, but until it was complete, Sarah's security clearance would be suspended and she would be placed on administrative leave. Sarah had sat in stunned silence, her analytical mind trying to process what she was hearing. She knew every detail her family had reported was either fabricated or deliberately misrepresented. The foreign surveillance she had mentioned was part of her legitimate work identifying hostile intelligence operations. Her discussions about government monitoring were professional assessments of counterintelligence protocols, not paranoid fantasies. The most crushing betrayal was Jennifer's clinical assessment. As sisters, they had shared everything growing up, and Jennifer knew better than anyone how dedicated and rational Sarah was. For her own sister to weaponize her medical credentials against her felt like the deepest possible violation of trust. Colonel Martinez had tried to soften the blow by emphasizing that this was merely a precautionary measure. Sarah's record spoke for itself, he assured her, and he personally had no doubts about her competence or stability. However, the Pentagon couldn't ignore formal complaints from immediate family members, especially when one of those family members was a licensed psychiatrist. Walking out of the Pentagon that afternoon, Sarah felt as though she was leaving behind not just her job but her entire identity. For over a decade, her work had been her life's purpose. She lived and breathed intelligence analysis, often spending 16-hour days diving deep into data patterns that others couldn't see. Her apartment was Spartan, her social life minimal, because every ounce of her energy went into protecting her country from threats that most Americans never even knew existed. Now she was being portrayed as mentally unstable by the people who should have supported her most. The implications went far beyond temporary leave. Even if she was eventually cleared, the shadow of doubt would follow her for the rest of her career. Security agencies were notoriously unforgiving when it came to psychological red flags, and competing colleagues would use this against her for years to come. The first few days at home were the hardest. Sarah's efficiency-focused apartment, which had always felt purposeful, now seemed empty and sterile. Without the constant stream of intelligence reports and analytical challenges, she was left alone with her thoughts and a growing sense of betrayal. She found herself replaying every recent interaction with her family, searching for clues about their motivations. Her relationship with her family had always been complicated. Sarah was the youngest of 3 children, born when her parents were already established in their respective careers. Her mother, Linda, was a prominent cardiologist, while her father, Robert, ran a successful import-export business specializing in Asian markets. Both David and Jennifer had followed conventional paths to success, becoming the kind of high-achieving professionals their parents could easily understand and showcase to their social circle. Sarah's choice to enter intelligence work had never been fully understood or appreciated by her family. They respected her achievements in abstract terms, but they couldn't relate to the secretive nature of her work or the sacrifices it required. During family gatherings, conversations inevitably turned to David's latest corporate victory or Jennifer's research publications, while Sarah's contributions to national security remained classified and unspoken. Over the years, she had sensed a growing resentment from her siblings about the mystery surrounding her career. They knew she held an important position and earned a substantial salary, but the lack of specific details seemed to frustrate them. David, in particular, had made increasingly snide comments about government work and the type of people who chose careers in intelligence. The financial dynamics had become more complex after their father's death 2 years earlier. Robert Chen had built his import business into a modest fortune, and his will had divided the estate equally among the 3 children. However, the business itself was left to be managed jointly, with decisions requiring majority agreement among the siblings. Sarah had been largely uninvolved in the business operations, trusting David and Jennifer to handle the details while she focused on her Pentagon responsibilities. She received quarterly reports and her share of the profits, but she rarely participated in the strategic discussions that shaped the company's direction. Her siblings had repeatedly suggested that she was too busy with her secretive government work to be an effective business partner. In recent months, David had been pushing for major expansion into new markets, particularly in Southeast Asia and Eastern Europe. The proposed investments would require significant capital and carry substantial risk, but David was convinced they represented the future of international trade. Jennifer had supported the expansion plans, arguing that their father would have embraced such opportunities. Sarah had been more cautious, requesting detailed financial projections and risk assessments before committing to such a major strategic shift. Her intelligence background had taught her to identify potential red flags in international business operations, and some of David's proposed partnerships had raised concerns about money laundering and sanctions violations. Her resistance to the expansion had created tension during family meetings, with David dismissing her concerns as bureaucratic paranoia learned from her government work. He had accused her of applying intelligence agency suspicion to legitimate business opportunities, suggesting that her years in the Pentagon had warped her ability to assess normal commercial risks. The conflict had escalated during their last family gathering in March, when Sarah had discovered that David had already begun preliminary negotiations with several potential partners without formal approval from his sisters. When she demanded to see the contracts and due diligence reports, David had exploded, accusing her of treating the family business like a national security threat. Jennifer had sided with David, arguing that Sarah's insistence on extensive background checks and financial audits was unreasonable for standard business partnerships. She had suggested that Sarah's work environment had made her overly suspicious and paranoid about routine commercial relationships. Looking back on that confrontation, Sarah realized it had been the beginning of their campaign against her. David needed her share of the inheritance to fund his expansion plans, and Jennifer provided the professional credibility to make their accusations seem legitimate. By portraying Sarah as mentally unstable, they could potentially gain control of her portion of the family business and remove her objections to their risky ventures. The psychological evaluation was scheduled for the following Monday, giving Sarah 5 days to prepare for what would essentially be a battle for her career and reputation. Dr. Walsh had explained that the assessment would be comprehensive, involving multiple sessions with different specialists and a thorough review of her work history and personal relationships. Sarah knew she was facing an uphill battle. Mental health evaluations were subjective by nature, and the evaluators would be influenced by the formal complaints from her family. Even if she could prove her competence and stability, the damage to her reputation might be irreversible. Intelligence agencies thrived on trust and confidence, and any lingering doubts about her psychological fitness would limit her future opportunities. On Thursday morning, as Sarah sat in her apartment reviewing her options, an unexpected visitor changed everything. The knock at her door was soft but persistent, and when she looked through the peephole, she saw an elderly Asian man in an expensive suit whom she didn't recognize. When she opened the door, the man introduced himself as Vincent Wong, her father's former business partner and longtime friend. Sarah had heard her father mention Vincent over the years, but they had never met in person. Vincent explained that he had learned about her situation through mutual acquaintances in the intelligence community, and had concerns about the circumstances surrounding her administrative leave. Vincent's revelation was stunning. He had been monitoring David's recent business activities and had discovered several irregularities that suggested potential criminal liability. The expansion plans that David was so eager to pursue involved partnerships with companies that Vincent's own intelligence sources had identified as fronts for money laundering operations. More disturbing was Vincent's discovery that David had been using his position as business manager to move money through accounts that could potentially violate sanctions regulations. The transactions were technically legal but walked a fine line that could easily become criminal with slight modifications. If Sarah's psychological evaluation resulted in her being declared unfit to participate in business decisions, David would have free rein to pursue these questionable ventures without interference. Vincent's interest in Sarah's situation wasn't purely altruistic. As a former intelligence operative himself, he had maintained connections throughout the national security community and was deeply troubled by the precedent being set. If family members could effectively end intelligence careers by making unsubstantiated psychological claims, it would create a dangerous vulnerability that hostile foreign services could exploit. He had spent the past week quietly investigating Sarah's family and their motivations, building a detailed picture of the conspiracy against her. His findings painted a clear picture of siblings willing to destroy their sister's career to advance their own financial interests, using Jennifer's medical credentials to lend credibility to their fabricated concerns. Vincent's resources were impressive. Through his network of former colleagues and current contacts, he had access to financial records, communication intercepts, and surveillance data that painted a comprehensive picture of David and Jennifer's activities. More importantly, he had connections within the Pentagon security apparatus who could ensure that this additional information reached the right decision-makers. The alliance that formed between Sarah and Vincent over the following days was built on mutual respect and shared understanding of intelligence work. Vincent had operated in the shadows for decades, and he immediately grasped the nuances of Sarah's situation in ways that civilian lawyers or therapists never could. He understood that this wasn't just about clearing her name, but about exposing a conspiracy that threatened the integrity of national security personnel decisions. Their first priority was gathering evidence that would definitively prove the fabricated nature of the psychological complaints. Vincent's technical resources allowed them to obtain recordings of conversations between David and Jennifer, where they discussed their strategy for removing Sarah from business decisions. The recordings revealed not only their financial motivations but also their callous disregard for the damage they were inflicting on Sarah's career. Even more damaging was evidence that Jennifer had violated medical ethics by providing a professional assessment of Sarah without conducting a proper examination or maintaining appropriate professional boundaries. The recordings showed Jennifer acknowledging that her clinical observations were based on deliberately misinterpreted interactions rather than genuine psychiatric symptoms. Vincent's investigation also revealed the true nature of David's business expansion plans. The partnerships he was pursuing weren't just risky, they were potentially criminal. Several of the proposed business associates had connections to organizations under active investigation by multiple intelligence agencies. David's eagerness to move forward with these relationships suggested either remarkable naivete or willful disregard for legal compliance. The financial records that Vincent obtained painted a picture of desperation behind David's expansion plans. His law practice was struggling with several major clients threatening to leave over billing disputes and missed deadlines. He had been using advances from the family business to cover personal expenses, creating a cash flow crisis that made the expansion funding critical to his financial survival. Jennifer's motivation was more complex, but equally damaging. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Her research career had stalled, and she was facing potential tenure denial at Johns Hopkins. David had promised to fund a private research foundation that would allow her to continue her work independently, but only if they could access Sarah's share of the family inheritance to provide the necessary capital. As Sarah and Vincent compiled their evidence, a clearer picture emerged of siblings who had systematically planned to destroy their sister's career for their own financial benefit. They had counted on Sarah's isolated lifestyle and secretive work environment to make her vulnerable to psychological accusations that would be difficult to refute. The psychological evaluation appointment was approaching, and Sarah felt increasingly confident about her ability to defend herself. With Vincent's support, she had assembled a comprehensive dossier that not only proved her mental stability, but exposed the conspiracy against her. More importantly, she had gained an ally who understood the stakes involved and had the resources to ensure that justice would be served. Dr. Rebecca Walsh had scheduled 3 sessions over the course of a week, each designed to assess different aspects of Sarah's psychological fitness. The first session would focus on her general mental state and stress levels. The second would examine her judgment and decision-making capabilities. And the third would specifically address the family allegations about paranoid behavior. Sarah entered the first session feeling prepared and focused. Dr. Walsh was professional but not hostile, clearly trying to maintain objectivity despite the serious nature of the allegations. The session began with standard psychological assessment tools, including personality inventories and cognitive function tests that Sarah completed easily. When Dr. Walsh asked about the specific allegations from her family, Sarah was ready with clear, factual responses. She explained the context behind each accusation, providing documentation that showed how her legitimate professional concerns had been deliberately mischaracterized as paranoid delusions. Her discussion of foreign surveillance was part of her official duties tracking hostile intelligence operations, not evidence of personal paranoia. The second session focused on cognitive function and professional judgment. Dr. Walsh reviewed Sarah's work history and asked detailed questions about her analytical methods and decision-making processes. Sarah's responses demonstrated not only exceptional competence, but a level of intellectual rigor that was inconsistent with any form of mental instability. Dr. Walsh seemed particularly impressed by Sarah's ability to compartmentalize classified information while discussing her work in general terms. This skill required sophisticated cognitive control and clear thinking, exactly the opposite of what would be expected from someone experiencing delusional episodes or paranoid thinking. During the third session, Dr. Walsh addressed the family allegations directly. Sarah was prepared for this conversation and responded with calm professionalism, explaining the family business conflicts that had preceded the psychological complaints. She provided documentation of the financial disputes and her siblings' motivations without appearing defensive or paranoid. By the end of the evaluation process, Dr. Walsh's assessment was clear. Sarah showed no signs of mental instability, paranoid thinking, or delusional behavior. Her cognitive function was exceptional, her professional judgment was sound, and her explanations for the family allegations were both rational and supported by evidence. The official report would take several days to complete, but Dr. Walsh indicated that she would be recommending Sarah's immediate return to active duty, with full security clearance restoration. The psychological evaluation had not only cleared Sarah of the family allegations, but had actually highlighted her exceptional mental resilience and professional competence. Vincent had been monitoring the evaluation process through his Pentagon contacts, and he confirmed that the initial indications were positive. However, he also warned Sarah that clearing the psychological hurdle was only the first step in their broader campaign for justice. The conspiracy against her involved potential criminal activity that needed to be addressed through appropriate legal channels. The evidence they had gathered painted a picture of systematic fraud and ethical violations that went far beyond family disputes. David's business activities potentially violated federal regulations regarding international commerce and money laundering. Jennifer's misuse of her medical credentials to provide false psychiatric assessments could result in professional sanctions and criminal charges. More broadly, their attempt to manipulate national security personnel decisions represented a threat to intelligence community integrity that needed to be addressed at the highest levels. Vincent's connections in the intelligence hierarchy were prepared to take this case seriously once Sarah's clearance was officially restored. As Sarah waited for the final evaluation results, she reflected on how much her life had changed in just 2 weeks. The betrayal by her family had been devastating, but it had also revealed truths about her relationships that she had been avoiding for years. Her siblings had never truly respected her career or understood her contributions to national security, viewing her success as either mysterious or somehow less legitimate than their own achievements. The alliance with Vincent had opened her eyes to possibilities she had never considered. His offer to help her transition to private intelligence consulting if she chose to leave government service was tempting, particularly given the damage her family had tried to inflict on her Pentagon career. The experience had shown her that her skills were valuable in multiple contexts and that she didn't have to limit herself to traditional government roles. More importantly, the past 2 weeks had taught her the value of having allies who understood the nature of intelligence work and the unique pressures it created. Vincent's support had been instrumental not just in clearing her name, but in helping her see her situation from a broader strategic perspective. The official notification came on a Friday afternoon. Dr. Walsh's report had been unequivocal in its findings, and Colonel Martinez called personally to inform Sarah that she was being reinstated immediately with full security clearance and back pay for the period of her suspension. The Pentagon's security office had also noted concerns about the source of the original allegations and was requesting additional information about the circumstances surrounding the complaint. Sarah's return to the Pentagon the following Monday was triumphant, but subdued. Her colleagues welcomed her back warmly, many expressing outrage about the family allegations that had temporarily sidelined one of their most valuable analysts. Colonel Martinez took the unusual step of publicly acknowledging that the psychological evaluation had confirmed what everyone in the intelligence community already knew. Sarah Chen was one of the most competent and stable professionals in the entire Pentagon. However, Sarah's focus was already shifting beyond her personal vindication to the broader implications of what had happened. Vincent had been right that this case represented a dangerous precedent for intelligence community personnel security. If family members could derail national security careers through fabricated psychological complaints, it created a vulnerability that hostile foreign services could easily exploit. The evidence they had compiled about David and Jennifer's conspiracy was being reviewed by multiple agencies, each with different areas of jurisdiction and responsibility. The FBI was examining potential criminal violations related to the business activities, while the Pentagon Security Office was investigating the manipulation of personnel security processes. Jennifer's medical licensing board had been notified about her unethical use of psychiatric credentials to provide false professional assessments. The charges against her were serious and could result in permanent loss of her medical license, effectively ending her career in psychiatry. David's legal troubles were more complex, but potentially more severe. The business activities that Vincent had uncovered suggested violations of federal regulations regarding international commerce. and several of his proposed business partners were under active investigation by other agencies. His attempt to manipulate his sister's security clearance status to advance these questionable ventures had transformed a family dispute into a potential national security matter. As the investigation expanded, Sarah found herself working closely with Vincent to provide information and analysis that supported the various criminal and administrative proceedings. The irony wasn't lost on her that her expertise in intelligence analysis was now being used to expose the conspiracy against her own career. The process also provided her with insights into her family dynamics that were both painful and liberating. The recordings that Vincent had obtained revealed years of resentment and manipulation that Sarah had been too trusting to recognize. Her siblings had never seen her as an equal partner in the family business or a valued family member, but rather as an obstacle to their own ambitions. Their willingness to destroy her career for financial gain demonstrated a level of callousness that Sarah found difficult to comprehend. These were people who had shared her childhood, attended her graduations, and benefited from her success over the years. The betrayal felt deeper than professional sabotage. It was a fundamental rejection of family bonds and mutual loyalty. Vincent helped her understand that this kind of ruthless pragmatism was more common than she realized, particularly in families where significant money was involved. His years in intelligence had exposed him to countless cases where relatives had betrayed each other for much smaller stakes than were involved in the Chen family business. The legal proceedings moved forward steadily through the fall, with Sarah's role shifting from victim to key witness in multiple investigations. Her testimony was crucial in establishing the timeline of events and demonstrating the calculated nature of the conspiracy against her. The evidence was overwhelming, and both David and Jennifer faced serious legal and professional consequences for their actions. David's law practice collapsed as news of the investigation became public, with his remaining clients terminating their relationships to avoid association with potential criminal activity. The business expansion plans that had motivated the entire conspiracy were permanently abandoned, and the family company was placed under federal oversight pending resolution of the various investigations. Jennifer's academic career ended when Johns Hopkins terminated her appointment following the Medical Licensing Board's preliminary findings. Her research funding was suspended, and the private foundation that David had promised to establish became impossible as his own legal troubles mounted. The broader implications of the case resonated throughout the intelligence community. New protocols were established for evaluating psychological complaints against cleared personnel, particularly when those complaints originated from family members with potential financial motivations. Vincent's role in exposing the conspiracy earned him recognition from several agencies and helped establish new safeguards against similar manipulations in the future. For Sarah, the experience fundamentally changed her relationship with both her family and her career. The psychological evaluation had confirmed her competence and stability, but it had also highlighted the isolation that came with her chosen profession. The conspiracy had succeeded initially because she lacked strong personal relationships outside of her work environment. Vincent's mentorship helped her recognize that her analytical skills and expertise were valuable in multiple contexts beyond traditional government. Service. His consulting firm offered opportunities to work on private sector intelligence projects that could complement her Pentagon responsibilities while building a broader professional network. The financial settlement from the family business litigation provided her with resources that she had never expected to possess. David and Jennifer's actions had resulted in substantial damages to Sarah's reputation and career prospects, and the courts awarded compensation that reflected both the actual harm and the malicious nature of their conspiracy. More importantly, the experience had taught her the importance of building strong personal alliances and maintaining connections outside of her immediate work environment. Vincent's network of former intelligence professionals provided her with mentorship and friendship that enriched her life beyond the narrow confines of her Pentagon role. As winter approached, Sarah found herself in a stronger position than she had ever occupied before. Her reputation within the intelligence community had been enhanced rather than damaged by the conspiracy against her, and her successful defense had demonstrated resilience and strategic thinking that impressed her superiors. The case had also established important precedents for protecting intelligence personnel against manipulation and false allegations. Vincent's involvement had ensured that the broader implications were understood and addressed at the highest levels of the national security apparatus. Looking back on the events that had begun with a simple family business dispute, Sarah recognized that the conspiracy had inadvertently provided her with opportunities that she might never have discovered otherwise. The alliance with Vincent had opened doors to new career possibilities and personal relationships that enriched her life in unexpected ways. The betrayal by her siblings had been devastating, but it had also freed her from family obligations and expectations that had limited her potential. Without the weight of their disapproval and manipulation, she was able to pursue opportunities and relationships based on her own interests and values, rather than family pressure. The final court proceedings concluded just before Thanksgiving, with David receiving a substantial federal sentence for his business crimes, and Jennifer permanently losing her medical license. The family business was dissolved, with Sarah's share being distributed according to the original inheritance terms plus substantial additional damages. As Sarah prepared for her first holiday season since the conspiracy began, she reflected on how completely her life had been transformed. The woman who had entered Colonel Martinez's office 9 months earlier as an isolated intelligence analyst had emerged as a recognized expert with a strong network of professional allies and personal friends. The Pentagon had offered her several promotion opportunities, including a chance to head a new division focused on private sector intelligence threats. Vincent's consulting firm had also extended a standing offer for her to join as a senior partner, providing her with options and flexibility that she had never possessed before. Most importantly, the experience had taught her that her value extended far beyond her technical expertise. The strategic thinking and analytical skills that made her effective in intelligence work were equally valuable in navigating personal and professional challenges. The conspiracy against her had failed not just because the evidence was fabricated, but because she had learned to think strategically about her own life and relationships. The holiday season brought unexpected invitations and social opportunities that reflected her expanded network and enhanced reputation. Colleagues who had previously known her only as a competent but distant analyst now sought her out for advice and friendship. Vincent's circle of former intelligence professionals welcomed her as both a protégé and a peer. As she prepared for the new year, Sarah faced choices that would have been unimaginable when the conspiracy began. Her career prospects were better than ever, her financial situation was secure, and her personal life was enriched by meaningful relationships built on mutual respect and shared experiences. The conspiracy that her siblings had intended to destroy her career had instead provided her with the opportunity to build a stronger and more fulfilling life than she had ever imagined possible. The betrayal had been real and painful, but the ultimate outcome had been liberation from limitations and expectations that had held her back for years. Standing in her apartment on New Year's Eve, Sarah raised a glass of champagne to toast not just the coming year, but the unexpected journey that had brought her to this moment of possibility and promise. The woman who had been portrayed as mentally unstable had proven to be one of the most strategic and resilient professionals in the intelligence community. The Pentagon's top analyst had emerged from her greatest challenge stronger, smarter, and more connected than ever before. The family who had tried to destroy her had instead given her the opportunity to discover her true potential and build the life she deserved. The federal courthouse in downtown Washington felt imposing even to someone who had spent years briefing senators and generals. Sarah adjusted her navy blazer as she walked through the metal detectors, Vincent beside her carrying a leather briefcase that contained months of carefully compiled evidence. Today marked the beginning of the criminal proceedings against David, and Sarah's testimony would be crucial in establishing the scope of his fraudulent activities. Assistant U.S. Attorney Maria Gonzalez had spent weeks preparing Sarah for this moment. The prosecution's case hinged on proving that David's manipulation of the family business wasn't just civil fraud, but a criminal conspiracy that had endangered national security by attempting to compromise an intelligence analyst's career. The charges were serious: wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to interfere with federal personnel security processes. In the witness preparation room, Maria reviewed the key points one final time. Sarah's role was to establish the timeline of events and explain how David's business activities had created the financial pressure that motivated the conspiracy against her. The technical aspects of her intelligence work would remain classified, but the personal impact of the false allegations would be central to demonstrating the severity of David's crimes. Vincent sat quietly in the corner, his presence both comforting and strategically important. As a former intelligence operative with decades of experience, his credibility would bolster Sarah's testimony about the potential national security implications of the conspiracy. More importantly, his investigation had uncovered the evidence that transformed this from a family dispute into a federal criminal case. The courtroom was surprisingly full when Sarah entered to testify. Word had spread through the intelligence community about the case, and several of her Pentagon colleagues had taken time off to show support. Colonel Martinez sat in the gallery, his presence sending a clear message about the military's commitment to protecting its personnel from this type of manipulation. David sat at the defense table looking dramatically different from the confident corporate lawyer Sarah remembered from family gatherings. His expensive suits had been replaced by a conservative gray ensemble that couldn't disguise the weight loss and stress lines that months of legal pressure had created. He avoided eye contact as Sarah took the oath, but she could see his hands trembling slightly as he pretended to review documents with his attorney. Maria's direct examination was methodical and thorough. Sarah began by describing her career progression from a junior analyst to one of the Pentagon's most trusted intelligence experts. She explained the rigorous security clearance process and the ongoing monitoring that intelligence personnel underwent to maintain their access to classified information. This foundation was crucial for the jury to understand why psychological allegations against someone in her position carried such devastating potential consequences. The testimony moved to the family business dynamics and the inheritance that had created the financial stake driving David's actions. Sarah described her father's import business and the equal distribution of ownership among the three siblings after his death. She explained how her demanding Pentagon schedule had led her to defer to David's management decisions, trusting him to handle the operational details while she focused on her intelligence responsibilities. When Maria asked about the proposed business expansion that had triggered the family conflict, Sarah's voice remained steady despite the emotional weight of the memories. She described David's increasingly aggressive push for partnerships that her intelligence background had identified as potentially problematic. The proposed associates included companies with unclear ownership structures and financial practices that raised red flags for someone trained to identify money laundering operations. Sarah's explanation of her concerns about the expansion plans demonstrated the analytical thinking that made her valuable to the Pentagon. She had requested detailed due diligence reports and background checks on potential partners, standard practices in any legitimate business dealing with international commerce. David's resistance to these reasonable precautions had been the first clear indication that his motivations weren't entirely legitimate. The psychological allegations came next in the testimony, and this was where Sarah's composure was most important. Maria guided her through each false claim that David and Jennifer had made, allowing Sarah to provide the factual context that exposed their fabricated nature. Her discussion of foreign surveillance wasn't paranoid delusion, but legitimate professional concern about hostile intelligence operations targeting Pentagon personnel. Sarah's voice carried quiet dignity as she described the impact of her family's betrayal. The administrative leave hadn't just affected her career prospects, it had damaged her reputation within the intelligence community and created personal doubts about her judgment and relationships. The psychological evaluation process, while ultimately vindicating, had been a humiliating experience that forced her to defend her sanity to strangers based on lies told by her own siblings. The defense attorney's cross-examination was aggressive, but largely ineffective. David's lawyer attempted to portray the business disputes as routine family disagreements and suggested that Sarah's intelligence background had made her paranoid about normal commercial relationships. However, Sarah's calm responses and detailed knowledge of international business regulations undermined these attacks and actually reinforced her credibility. When the defense lawyer suggested that Sarah had used her government connections to manufacture evidence against David, Vincent's presence in the courtroom became strategically important. Maria's objection was sustained, but the implication hung in the air until Sarah was able to clarify that all evidence had been obtained through legitimate legal processes and that Vincent's investigation had followed proper protocols throughout. The most dramatic moment came when the defense attorney produced recordings of family conversations where Sarah had discussed classified information in general terms, This was exactly the type of evidence that David and Jennifer had hoped would support their psychological allegations, but Sarah's explanation revealed the sophisticated professional judgment involved in her comments. Sarah methodically explained how intelligence professionals learn to discuss their work in ways that conveyed important concepts without revealing specific classified details. Her comments about foreign surveillance and government monitoring weren't signs of paranoia but examples of the analytical thinking that made her valuable to national security. The defense attorney's attempt to use her professional competence against her backfired spectacularly. After Sarah's testimony concluded, Vincent took the stand to explain his investigation and the evidence he had uncovered. His decades of intelligence experience gave him gravitas that the jury clearly respected, and his calm recitation of David's financial irregularities painted a damning picture of systematic fraud and deception. Vincent's testimony revealed the full scope of David's criminal activities, extending far beyond the conspiracy against Sarah. The business expansion plans involved partnerships with companies that were fronts for money laundering operations, and David's eagerness to proceed without proper due diligence suggested either criminal intent or willful blindness to obvious red flags. The financial records that Vincent had obtained showed a pattern of deception that went back years. David had been skimming money from the family business to cover personal expenses and bad investments, creating a cash flow crisis that made Sarah's inheritance share critical to his survival. The psychological allegations against Sarah weren't just motivated by greed, but by desperation, as David's financial situation deteriorated. Most damaging to David's case was Vincent's revelation of recorded conversations, where David and Jennifer explicitly discussed their strategy for removing Sarah from business decisions. The recordings captured them laughing about the gullibility of Pentagon security officials and speculating about how long it would take to gain control of Sarah's inheritance once she was declared mentally incompetent. Jennifer's role in the conspiracy became clear through Vincent's testimony about her ethical violations. She had provided professional psychiatric assessments of Sarah without conducting proper examinations or maintaining appropriate boundaries, violating fundamental principles of medical ethics. Her willingness to abuse her medical credentials for financial gain demonstrated a level of professional corruption that shocked even experienced courtroom observers. The prosecution's case was overwhelming, but the defense attempted to create doubt by portraying Vincent as a shadowy figure with unclear motivations for helping Sarah. David's attorney suggested that Vincent's intelligence background made him unreliable and implied that his investigation methods were questionable. However, this strategy backfired when Vincent calmly explained his legitimate concerns about the precedent being set for intelligence community personnel security. Vincent's testimony about the broader implications of the case resonated strongly with the jury. If family members could effectively end intelligence careers through fabricated psychological allegations, it would create a dangerous vulnerability that foreign adversaries could exploit. The case wasn't just about one analyst's career, but about protecting the integrity of national security personnel processes. The trial's final phase included testimony from Dr. Rebecca Walsh, the Pentagon psychologist who had conducted Sarah's evaluation. Her professional assessment completely contradicted the family allegations and established Sarah as one of the most psychologically stable individuals she had ever evaluated. Dr. Walsh's testimony also revealed the sophisticated methods that David and Jennifer had used to create the appearance of legitimate psychiatric concerns. Character witnesses from Sarah's Pentagon colleagues provided additional context about her professional competence and personal integrity. Colonel Martinez testified about her exceptional analytical abilities and the critical national security contributions she had made over her career. Her superiors described her as exactly the type of dedicated professional that the intelligence community needed to protect and support. The prosecution's closing argument tied together all the evidence into a compelling narrative of betrayal and criminal conspiracy. Maria Gonzalez emphasized that this wasn't just about money but about the fundamental trust that must exist between family members and the professional integrity required for national security work. David's actions had violated both personal and professional ethical standards in ways that demanded serious consequences. David's defense attorney made a final desperate attempt to portray his client as a victim of misunderstanding rather than a criminal conspirator. However, the evidence was too overwhelming, and the jury's expressions made clear that they weren't buying the defense narrative. After 6 hours of deliberation, they returned guilty verdicts on all charges. The sentencing hearing 3 weeks later brought closure to the criminal phase of Sarah's ordeal. David received a substantial federal prison sentence that reflected both the financial scope of his crimes and the national security implications of his actions. The judge's comments during sentencing emphasized the particular seriousness of attempting to manipulate intelligence community personnel decisions through false allegations. Jennifer's professional consequences were handled through separate proceedings, but the medical licensing board's decision was equally severe. Her permanent loss of medical credentials effectively ended her psychiatric career and served as a warning to other medical professionals about the consequences of abusing their professional authority. The foundation that David had promised to fund for her research became impossible, as his assets were seized to pay restitution and fines. The civil litigation proceeded parallel to the criminal case, and Sarah's attorneys were able to leverage the criminal convictions to strengthen their claims for damages. The family business was dissolved as part of the settlement, with Sarah receiving her full inheritance share plus substantial additional compensation for the damage to her reputation and career prospects. More importantly for Sarah's long-term security, the legal proceedings established important precedents for protecting intelligence personnel against similar attacks. New protocols were implemented for evaluating psychological allegations against cleared personnel, particularly when those allegations originated from family members with potential financial motivations. Vincent's role in exposing the conspiracy earned recognition from multiple agencies and helped establish new safeguards against future manipulations. His consulting firm received contracts to help develop training programs for intelligence personnel about protecting themselves from personal vulnerabilities that could be exploited by hostile actors or corrupt family members. The intelligence community's response to Sarah's case went beyond just procedural changes. Her successful defense against the conspiracy became a case study used in training programs about personal security and family dynamics. The case demonstrated that even the most dedicated professionals could be vulnerable to manipulation if they didn't maintain awareness of potential threats from unexpected sources. Sarah's return to full duty at the Pentagon was marked by increased responsibilities and recognition of her unique expertise. The ordeal had demonstrated not just her analytical abilities but her strategic thinking and resilience under pressure. Colonel Martinez recommended her for accelerated promotion consideration, and several senior officials expressed interest in having her join their teams. The professional opportunities that emerged from the case were remarkable. Sarah's successful navigation of the conspiracy had showcased skills that went beyond traditional intelligence analysis, including strategic planning, evidence evaluation, and crisis management. These capabilities made her valuable for senior positions that required both technical expertise and leadership abilities. Vincent's mentorship continued after the legal proceedings concluded, providing Sarah with insights into career opportunities beyond traditional government service. His consulting firm offered projects that allowed her to work on private sector intelligence challenges while maintaining her Pentagon position. These experiences broadened her professional network and demonstrated the commercial value of her skills. The financial settlement from the legal proceedings provided Sarah with resources and options that she had never expected to possess. The compensation went beyond just replacing her inheritance share to reflect the substantial damage that David and Jennifer's actions had caused to her reputation and future prospects. This financial security allowed her to make career decisions based on interest and challenge rather than just economic necessity. More significantly, the experience had fundamentally changed Sarah's relationship with risk and vulnerability. The conspiracy had succeeded initially because she had been too trusting and too focused on her work to recognize the threat from within her own family. The lessons learned from this betrayal made her more strategic about personal relationships and more aware of potential vulnerabilities. The intelligence community's culture of secrecy and compartmentalization had contributed to Sarah's isolation and vulnerability. Her colleagues knew her as a competent professional, but had little insight into her personal life or family dynamics. The conspiracy had exploited this isolation, and Sarah's response included building stronger personal relationships within the intelligence community. Vincent introduced Sarah to a network of current and former intelligence professionals, who had faced similar challenges in balancing demanding careers with personal relationships. This community provided both professional mentorship and personal support that enriched Sarah's life beyond her work responsibilities. The relationships were built on shared understanding of the unique pressures and sacrifices required for intelligence careers. The case also highlighted the importance of financial literacy and business acumen for intelligence professionals. Sarah's trusting approach to family business decisions had made her vulnerable to David's manipulations. Vincent's guidance helped her develop the skills needed to protect her financial interests and make informed decisions about business opportunities. Sarah's enhanced awareness of financial and legal risks led her to establish protective structures for her assets and to seek professional advice about investment and business decisions. The settlement money was carefully invested in diversified portfolios that would provide long-term security while minimizing exposure to the type of family manipulation she'd experienced. The psychological impact of the conspiracy extended beyond just professional considerations. Sarah had been forced to confront fundamental questions about trust, family loyalty, and personal vulnerability that challenged her basic assumptions about relationships. The betrayal by David and Jennifer had been devastating, precisely because it came from people she had trusted unconditionally. Recovery from this kind of betrayal required not just legal vindication but emotional healing and personal growth. Vincent's guidance was invaluable in helping Sarah understand that the conspiracy reflected her siblings' character flaws rather than any weakness or failure on her part. The experience had revealed their true nature rather than created it. The support from her Pentagon colleagues during the crisis had been both professionally and personally meaningful. People who had previously known Sarah only as a competent but distant analyst had rallied to support her during the investigation and trial. These relationships deepened into genuine friendships that provided personal fulfillment beyond work achievements. Sarah's enhanced reputation within the intelligence community opened doors to opportunities that had previously been unavailable. Senior officials who had been impressed by her handling of the conspiracy began including her in high-level strategic discussions and seeking her input on policy decisions. Her analytical skills were now complemented by demonstrated leadership abilities and strategic thinking. The case studies developed from Sarah's experience became required reading for intelligence professionals at all levels. Her successful defense against family manipulation provided practical lessons about recognizing and responding to personal security threats. The training programs that incorporated her case helped other professionals identify potential vulnerabilities in their own lives. Media coverage of the trial was limited due to the classified nature of Sarah's work, but within the intelligence community her case became legendary. The story of an analyst who had turned her family's conspiracy against her into a career-enhancing victory inspired other professionals facing similar challenges. Sarah became an unofficial mentor for colleagues dealing with family pressures or personal vulnerabilities. The precedents established by Sarah's case influenced policy decisions throughout the national security apparatus. New guidelines were developed for evaluating allegations against cleared personnel, and additional safeguards were implemented to prevent the type of manipulation that David and Jennifer had attempted. These changes protected not just individual analysts but the integrity of the entire personnel security system. Vincent's investigation methods became models for internal security investigations involving family manipulation or personal vulnerabilities. His careful documentation and legal compliance had ensured that the evidence against David and Jennifer was admissible and convincing. The techniques he had used were incorporated into training programs for security professionals throughout the government. The international implications of the case were also significant. Foreign intelligence services constantly sought ways to compromise American intelligence personnel, and family manipulation was a recognized technique for creating vulnerabilities. Sarah's successful defense against this type of attack demonstrated American resilience and provided lessons for protecting against foreign attempts at similar manipulation. Sarah's enhanced security awareness extended to her digital presence and communication patterns. The conspiracy had relied partly on monitoring her activities and communications to create the appearance of erratic behavior. Vincent's guidance helped her implement better operational security practices that protected her privacy while maintaining necessary professional communications. The financial investigation that exposed David's crimes had revealed sophisticated money laundering networks that were previously unknown to law enforcement. The intelligence gathered during Sarah's case contributed to broader investigations that disrupted criminal financial operations and led to additional prosecutions. Her personal vindication had generated benefits that extended far beyond her individual case. The consulting opportunities that emerged from Vincent's network provided Sarah with exposure to private sector intelligence challenges that complemented her government experience. These projects involved corporate espionage investigations, due diligence for international business deals, and security assessments for technology companies with government contracts. Working on private sector projects gave Sarah insights into the commercial applications of intelligence analysis and broadened her understanding of threat environments beyond traditional national security concerns. The experience demonstrated that her skills were valuable in multiple contexts and provided career flexibility that she had never previously considered. The personal transformation that resulted from the conspiracy was perhaps more significant than the professional benefits. Sarah had evolved from an isolated specialist focused solely on her analytical work to a well-connected professional with diverse interests and relationships. The crisis had forced her to develop skills and awareness that enriched every aspect of her life. The holiday season following the trial conclusion brought invitations and social opportunities that reflected Sarah's expanded network and enhanced reputation. Colleagues who had previously known her only professionally now sought her friendship and advice. Vincent's circle of former intelligence professionals welcomed her as both a protégé and a peer with valuable perspectives to contribute. Sarah's apartment, which had once felt sterile and purely functional, became a gathering place for informal dinners and professional discussions. The social connections that developed around these gatherings provided personal fulfillment that complemented her professional achievements. The isolation that had made her vulnerable to family manipulation was replaced by a rich network of meaningful relationships. The annual Intelligence Community Awards ceremony that spring included special recognition for Sarah's contributions to personnel security and professional integrity. While the specific details of her case remained classified, the intelligence leadership acknowledged her role in improving protective measures for all cleared personnel. The recognition was both professionally satisfying and personally meaningful. Colonel Martinez's retirement ceremony that summer provided an opportunity for Sarah to reflect on how much her life had changed since the conspiracy began. Her mentor's career had spanned decades of service, and his guidance during her crisis had been instrumental in her successful navigation of the challenges. His retirement opened opportunities for Sarah to assume greater leadership responsibilities within the Pentagon. The promotion that came with increased responsibilities validated everything that Sarah had endured during the conspiracy. Her new position involved briefing cabinet-level officials and coordinating intelligence analysis across multiple agencies. The role required not just technical expertise but the strategic thinking and leadership abilities that the crisis had helped her develop. Vincent's consulting firm offered Sarah a partnership position that would allow her to maintain her government role while contributing to private sector projects on a part-time basis. The arrangement provided additional income and career flexibility while ensuring that her primary commitment remained to national service. The opportunity reflected both her enhanced value and the trust that Vincent had developed in her capabilities. The first anniversary of David's sentencing passed quietly, marked only by Sarah's private reflection on the journey she had completed. The woman who had entered Colonel Martinez's office a year earlier as an isolated analyst under false psychological allegations had emerged as a recognized leader with a strong professional network and enhanced capabilities. The conspiracy that her siblings had intended to destroy her career had instead provided opportunities for growth and advancement that she might never have discovered otherwise. The betrayal had been real and painful, but the ultimate outcome had been liberation from limitations and the development of capabilities that transformed her life. Standing in her office overlooking the Potomac River, Sarah reviewed the intelligence reports that would inform her briefing to the Secretary of Defense the following morning. The analytical skills that had always defined her remained central to her identity, but they were now complemented by strategic thinking, leadership abilities, and personal relationships that enriched every aspect of her work. The secure phone on her desk buzzed with an encrypted call from Vincent, who was traveling in Asia on a consulting project that involved some of the same financial networks that David had attempted to exploit. Their professional collaboration had evolved into a friendship that provided both personal fulfillment and ongoing opportunities for challenging and meaningful work. The evening ahead included dinner with colleagues who had become genuine friends during the crisis, followed by review of proposals for new intelligence sharing protocols that reflected lessons learned from her case. The balance between professional achievement and personal relationships that had been missing from her life before the conspiracy had been established through the challenges she had overcome. The woman who had once been vulnerable to family manipulation because of her isolation and single-minded focus on work had developed into a complete professional with the skills and relationships needed to navigate any challenge. The conspiracy had intended to destroy her, but instead it had revealed capabilities and opened opportunities that transformed her life in ways that exceeded her most ambitious dreams. The final legal proceedings related to the asset forfeiture from David's crimes concluded with additional funds being directed to programs supporting intelligence personnel and their families. Sarah's case had generated benefits that extended far beyond her personal vindication to improve conditions for all cleared personnel facing similar challenges. The training programs developed from her experience were being implemented throughout the intelligence community and shared with allied nations facing similar threats to their personnel security systems. The case had become an international example of successful defense against manipulation and corruption, providing lessons that protected intelligence professionals worldwide. As Sarah prepared for another year of challenging and meaningful work, she reflected on the profound truth that Vincent had helped her understand. Sometimes the greatest attacks come from the people closest to us, but they also provide opportunities to discover strength and capabilities we never knew we possessed. The conspiracy had intended to destroy her, but instead it had revealed the leader she was meant to become. 2 years after the conspiracy that nearly destroyed her career, Sarah Chen stood before the Senate Intelligence Committee as the newly appointed Deputy Director of the Pentagon's Cyber Threat Assessment Division. The confirmation hearing represented the culmination of a remarkable professional transformation that had elevated her from a talented but isolated analyst to one of the most influential intelligence leaders in Washington. The senators facing her across the mahogany table included several who had been briefed by Sarah during various national security crises. Her analytical insights had proven crucial in preventing cyber attacks on critical infrastructure, and her strategic recommendations had shaped policy decisions at the highest levels of government. The conspiracy that had once threatened to end her career had instead catalyzed a rise to prominence that exceeded her most ambitious dreams. Senator Patricia Williams, the committee chairwoman, opened the questioning with acknowledgement of Sarah's exceptional qualifications and track record. The hearing was largely ceremonial, as Sarah's nomination had strong bipartisan support based on her demonstrated competence and the critical nature of cyber threats facing the nation. However, the process provided an opportunity to discuss the broader implications of her case for intelligence community personnel security. Sarah's responses to the committee's questions demonstrated the leadership abilities and strategic thinking that had emerged from her ordeal. She spoke eloquently about the evolving nature of cyber threats and the need for innovative approaches to protecting national security in an increasingly connected world. Her vision for the Cyber Threat Assessment Division reflected both technical expertise and the hard-won wisdom gained from navigating personal and professional challenges. The hearing touched briefly on the conspiracy that had targeted her, though specific details remained classified. Sarah's measured response to questions about family manipulation and personnel security vulnerabilities impressed the senators with its professional objectivity and lack of personal bitterness. She had transformed a devastating personal betrayal into expertise that would benefit the entire intelligence community. Vincent Wong watched the hearing from the gallery, his presence a reminder of the alliance that had made Sarah's vindication and subsequent success possible. His consulting firm had become a trusted partner for multiple government agencies, and his relationship with Sarah had evolved into both professional collaboration and deep personal friendship. The network of relationships that had sustained Sarah through her crisis continued to provide mutual support and opportunities for meaningful work. The unanimous committee approval of Sarah's nomination was announced within hours of the hearing's conclusion. News coverage focused on her qualifications and the groundbreaking nature of her appointment as one of the youngest deputy directors in Pentagon history. The intelligence community's response was overwhelmingly positive, with colleagues expressing confidence in her ability to lead critical national security initiatives. Sarah's confirmation celebration that evening reflected the transformation in her personal life since the conspiracy began. The gathering included Pentagon colleagues who had become genuine friends, members of Vincent's network who had provided mentorship and support, and new relationships that had developed through her expanded role in the intelligence community. The isolation that had once made her vulnerable had been replaced by a rich network of meaningful connections. Colonel Martinez, now retired but maintaining close ties to Sarah, delivered remarks that highlighted her journey from brilliant analyst to inspiring leader. His words captured the sentiment of many in the intelligence community who had watched Sarah's remarkable transformation following her family's betrayal. The crisis that was intended to destroy her had instead revealed leadership qualities that made her invaluable to national security. Dr. Rebecca Walsh, the Pentagon psychologist who had conducted Sarah's evaluation during the conspiracy, attended the celebration with her own perspective on Sarah's growth. The psychological assessment that had vindicated Sarah's mental stability had also identified exceptional resilience and adaptability that predicted success in leadership roles. The conspiracy had inadvertently revealed capabilities that might have remained hidden in purely analytical positions. The private moments Sarah shared with Vincent during the celebration provided an opportunity to reflect on their unlikely partnership and its profound impact on both their lives. Vincent's decision to help Sarah had been motivated initially by concerns about intelligence community integrity, but their collaboration had evolved into one of the most meaningful relationships in both their lives. The mentorship had become mutual, with Sarah's insights enriching Vincent's understanding of contemporary intelligence challenges. Vincent's revelation that evening added another dimension to their relationship's significance. His decision to help Sarah hadn't been entirely altruistic. He had been investigating financial networks similar to those David had attempted to exploit, and Sarah's case had provided crucial intelligence for broader counterintelligence operations. Their partnership had generated benefits that extended far beyond Sarah's personal vindication to disrupt criminal organizations threatening national security. The following months brought new challenges and opportunities that tested Sarah's leadership abilities in ways that her analytical work never had. The Cyber Threat Assessment Division was facing unprecedented challenges from state-sponsored actors seeking to penetrate critical infrastructure, and Sarah's strategic vision would determine the effectiveness of America's defensive capabilities. Sarah's approach to leadership reflected lessons learned from her personal crisis about the importance of building strong teams and maintaining open communication. The isolation and lack of awareness that had made her vulnerable to family manipulation informed her management philosophy, emphasizing transparency and mutual support among her staff. The division became known throughout the Pentagon for its collaborative culture and innovative problem-solving approaches. The first major test of Sarah's leadership came 6 months into her tenure, when a sophisticated cyber attack targeted the electrical grid serving major metropolitan areas. The attack bore signatures of advanced persistent threat groups associated with hostile foreign governments, and the response required coordination among multiple agencies and private sector partners. Sarah's handling of the crisis demonstrated the strategic thinking and crisis management skills that had been forged during her personal ordeal. She established clear communication protocols, coordinated response efforts across organizational boundaries, and maintained calm leadership under extreme pressure. The successful defense against the attack enhanced her reputation throughout the national security community and validated her appointment to the deputy director position. The investigation following the cyber attack revealed connections to the same financial networks that Vincent had been tracking through David's attempted business partnerships. Sarah's personal experience with financial manipulation provided unique insights into the intersection of criminal finance and national security threats. The intelligence gathered during her family's conspiracy had contributed to a broader understanding of how hostile actors exploited business relationships to target American interests. David's prison sentence had been lengthened following additional charges related to his connections with money laundering networks discovered during the cyber investigation. His attempts to manipulate the family business had inadvertently provided law enforcement with intelligence about criminal organizations that extended far beyond his personal financial schemes. The conspiracy against Sarah had exposed vulnerabilities that threatened national security and led to significant counterintelligence successes. Jennifer's fall from grace had been equally dramatic and professionally devastating. Her permanent loss of medical credentials had been followed by civil lawsuits from patients who had received inadequate care while she was focused on her conspiracy against Sarah. The medical community's response to her ethical violations had been swift and unforgiving, effectively ending any possibility of professional rehabilitation. The dissolution of the family business had revealed additional financial irregularities that exposed David's criminal activities to tax authorities and regulatory agencies. The investigation had uncovered years of systematic fraud that extended far beyond the conspiracy against Sarah to encompass tax evasion, securities violations, and violations of international commerce regulations. David's legal troubles would continue for years, as multiple agencies pursued separate cases against him. Sarah's inheritance settlement had been structured to provide both immediate financial security and long-term investment opportunities that reflected her enhanced understanding of financial management. Vincent's guidance had helped her establish protective structures that would prevent future manipulation while providing resources for philanthropic activities that supported intelligence personnel and their families. The foundation that Sarah established with part of her settlement focused on supporting intelligence community families facing personal crises similar to the one she had endured. The organization provided legal assistance, counseling services, and financial support for personnel dealing with family manipulation, domestic threats, or other personal vulnerabilities that could compromise their security clearances or career prospects. Sarah's philanthropic work brought her into contact with intelligence personnel from throughout the government who had faced similar challenges in balancing demanding careers with personal relationships. The Foundation's support network provided both practical assistance and emotional support for individuals navigating complex family dynamics while maintaining security clearances and professional responsibilities. The training programs developed from Sarah's case had been implemented throughout the intelligence community and shared with allied nations facing similar personnel security challenges. The curriculum included modules on recognizing family manipulation, protecting personal finances, and maintaining security awareness in personal relationships. Sarah's case study had become a standard component of security awareness training for all cleared personnel. International recognition of Sarah's contributions to intelligence community security came through invitations to speak at conferences and collaborate with allied intelligence services. Her expertise in personnel security and family manipulation had applications beyond American intelligence agencies, and foreign services sought her insights into protecting their own personnel from similar threats. The relationship between Sarah and Vincent had evolved into a formal business partnership that complemented their respective government and private sector roles. Vincent's consulting firm had been awarded contracts to support Sarah's division with specialized investigations and analytical support. Their collaboration provided both organizations with capabilities that neither could develop independently. Sarah's personal life had been transformed as dramatically as her professional circumstances. The network of relationships that had developed during and after her crisis provided both emotional support and intellectual stimulation that enriched every aspect of her life. The apartment that had once felt sterile and purely functional had become a gathering place for dinner parties and professional discussions that reflected her expanded social circle. The romantic relationship that developed with Dr. Michael Torres, a cybersecurity expert from the National Security Agency, grew from their professional collaboration on the electrical grid attack response. Michael's understanding of the unique pressures facing intelligence personnel and his respect for Sarah's professional achievements created a foundation for genuine partnership that complemented, rather than competed with her career ambitions. Michael's background included his own family challenges that helped him understand the betrayal Sarah had experienced. His parents had emigrated from Mexico and built a successful construction business, but family disputes over succession planning had created conflicts similar to those Sarah had faced. Their shared understanding of family manipulation and professional dedication created a bond that deepened their relationship beyond simple romantic attraction. The engagement announcement 18 months after Sarah's confirmation as deputy director reflected her transformation from an isolated analyst vulnerable to family manipulation to a confident leader with strong personal relationships. The celebration brought together the network of colleagues, mentors, and friends who had supported Sarah through her crisis and continued to enrich her life. Vincent's role as best man at Sarah's wedding symbolized the unlikely friendship that had emerged from their alliance against the conspiracy. His speech at the reception captured the transformation that both he and Sarah had experienced through their partnership. The relationship that had begun as strategic cooperation had evolved into one of the most meaningful connections in both their lives. The wedding itself was a reflection of Sarah's new understanding of the importance of community and meaningful relationships. The guest list included Pentagon colleagues, intelligence community friends, members of Vincent's network, and new relationships that had developed through her expanded role in Washington's social and professional circles. The isolated analyst who had been vulnerable to family manipulation had been replaced by someone with deep roots in multiple communities. Sarah's honeymoon in Japan provided an opportunity to visit some of the technological centers that were crucial to understanding global cyber threats. The trip combined personal celebration with professional development, reflecting her integration of career ambitions with personal fulfillment. The balance that had been missing from her life before the conspiracy had been achieved through hard-won wisdom about priorities and relationships. The return to Washington brought new challenges as Sarah's division faced increasingly sophisticated threats from state-sponsored cyber actors. The attacks were becoming more frequent and more dangerous, requiring innovative defensive strategies and enhanced coordination among government agencies and private sector partners. Sarah's leadership would be crucial in developing effective responses to these evolving threats. The first year of Sarah's marriage coincided with her most significant professional achievement, the development of a revolutionary cyber threat detection system that could identify and respond to attacks in real time. The system represented the culmination of her analytical expertise and strategic vision, providing capabilities that dramatically enhanced America's defensive posture against cyber warfare. Recognition for the threat detection system came through multiple awards and commendations that established Sarah as one of the premier cyber intelligence experts in the world. The system was adopted by allied nations and became a model for international cooperation in cyber defense. Sarah's transformation from vulnerable analyst to recognized leader was complete. The 5th anniversary of the conspiracy that had threatened to end Sarah's career was marked by a private dinner with Vincent and Michael that provided an opportunity to reflect on the remarkable journey that had brought them together. The betrayal that had seemed devastating at the time had ultimately provided opportunities for growth and achievement that none of them could have imagined. Vincent's reflection on their partnership emphasized the mutual benefits that had emerged from their alliance. His decision to help Sarah had been motivated by principles and strategic concerns, but the relationship had enriched his life and expanded his understanding of contemporary intelligence challenges. The mentorship had become genuinely mutual, with each contributing to the other's professional and personal development. Sarah's perspective on the conspiracy had evolved from anger and hurt to recognition of the opportunities it had created for discovering her true capabilities. The crisis had forced her to develop skills and awareness that made her effective as a leader, and the relationships forged during the ordeal had provided the foundation for both professional success and personal fulfillment. The announcement of Sarah's promotion to director of the newly created Cyber Intelligence Coordination Office came 7 years after the conspiracy began. The position represented the pinnacle of cyber intelligence leadership, requiring coordination among all government agencies involved in cyber defense and oversight of critical private sector partnerships. Sarah's confirmation hearing for the director position was markedly different from her previous appearance before the Senate Intelligence Committee. Her track record of achievement and demonstrated leadership had established her as the obvious choice for the role, and the hearing focused on her vision for enhancing America's cyber defense capabilities rather than questions about her qualifications. The transformation in Sarah's public profile was remarkable. She had evolved from an unknown analyst to a recognized expert whose insights were sought by media, academic institutions, and international organizations. Her appearances on news programs and at professional conferences reflected both her technical expertise and the communication skills that had been developed through her leadership responsibilities. The personal transformation was equally significant. Sarah had evolved from someone vulnerable to family manipulation because of isolation and single-minded focus on work, to a leader with diverse interests and strong relationships across multiple communities. The crisis that had threatened to destroy her had instead revealed capabilities that made her life richer and more meaningful than she had ever imagined possible. Vincent's decision to retire from active consulting and accept a teaching position at Georgetown University's Intelligence Studies program was influenced partly by his desire to share the lessons learned from Sarah's case with future intelligence professionals. The course he developed on personnel security and family dynamics became one of the most popular offerings in the program, reflecting widespread recognition of the importance of these issues. Sarah's role as a guest lecturer in Vincent's course provided opportunities to share her experiences with students who would face similar challenges in their own careers. The story of her conspiracy and recovery had become a case study in resilience and strategic thinking that inspired a new generation of intelligence professionals. The foundation that Sarah had established continued to grow in scope and impact, providing assistance to intelligence personnel facing various personal challenges. The organization had expanded beyond family manipulation to address domestic violence, financial exploitation, and other threats that could compromise security clearances or career prospects. Sarah's personal experience had highlighted vulnerabilities that affected many intelligence professionals. The annual conference hosted by Sarah's foundation brought together intelligence personnel, security professionals, and academic experts to discuss emerging threats to personnel security. The event had become a premier gathering for sharing best practices and developing new approaches to protecting intelligence community personnel from personal vulnerabilities that could be exploited by hostile actors. Michael's support for Sarah's professional achievements and philanthropic activities had been crucial to her continued success. His understanding of intelligence work pressures and his own professional accomplishments created a partnership based on mutual respect and shared values. Their marriage had provided personal stability that enhanced rather than competed with Sarah's career ambitions. The couple's decision to start a family represented another dimension of Sarah's transformation from isolated analyst to fully integrated person with rich personal relationships. The pregnancy announcement was celebrated by the extended network of colleagues and friends who had supported Sarah through her journey from crisis to triumph. Sarah's approach to balancing motherhood with her demanding professional responsibilities reflected lessons learned about the importance of strong support networks and clear priorities. The isolation that had made her vulnerable to family manipulation had been replaced by multiple communities that provided both practical assistance and emotional support. The birth of Sarah and Michael's daughter provided Vincent with the opportunity to experience the grandparent role that his own family relationships had never offered. His connection to Sarah's growing family represented the evolution of their alliance, from strategic partnership to chosen family relationships based on mutual affection and respect. The 10th anniversary of the conspiracy was marked by Sarah's receipt of the intelligence community's highest honor for career achievement and contributions to national security. The award recognized not just her technical accomplishments but her leadership in developing new approaches to personnel security and her mentorship of younger intelligence professionals. Sarah's acceptance speech for the award reflected her perspective on the journey from crisis to triumph. She emphasized the importance of resilience, strategic thinking, and strong relationships in overcoming challenges that initially seem overwhelming. The conspiracy that had threatened to destroy her career had ultimately provided opportunities to discover capabilities she never knew she possessed. The audience for Sarah's speech included many of the people who had supported her through her crisis and continued to enrich her life through ongoing relationships. Colonel Martinez, now elderly but still sharp, beamed with pride at his former protégé's achievements. Dr. Walsh nodded approvingly at Sarah's emphasis on psychological resilience and adaptability. Vincent's presence in the audience symbolized the unlikely alliance that had made Sarah's vindication possible and continued to provide mutual benefits years later. Their partnership had evolved from crisis response to ongoing collaboration that enriched both their professional and personal lives. The investigation that had exposed David and Jennifer's conspiracy continued to generate intelligence benefits years after the original case concluded. The financial networks they had attempted to exploit were part of larger criminal organizations that posed ongoing threats to national security. Sarah's case had provided entry points for counterintelligence operations that disrupted hostile activities far beyond her family's original conspiracy. David's continued imprisonment and mounting legal troubles served as a warning to others who might consider similar schemes. His attempts to manipulate intelligence community personnel had resulted in enhanced penalties that reflected the national security implications of such attacks. The precedent established by his case had strengthened legal protections for intelligence personnel facing family manipulation. Jennifer's complete professional and personal downfall had been equally thorough and irreversible. Her attempts to rebuild her life after losing her medical license had been hampered by the widespread knowledge of her ethical violations within the medical community. The conspiracy against Sarah had destroyed not just her career but her reputation and relationships throughout her professional network. The family business that had been the original source of conflict had been completely dissolved, with the assets distributed according to legal settlements and criminal forfeiture proceedings. The import operation that Robert Chen had built over decades had been permanently destroyed by his children's greed and manipulation. Sarah's inheritance settlement had been the only positive outcome from the wreckage of family relationships. Sarah's relationship with her extended family had been permanently severed by the conspiracy, but she had found that the loss was more liberating than devastating. The relatives who had been manipulated by David and Jennifer's lies had revealed their own character flaws and their willingness to believe accusations without seeking Sarah's perspective. The family connections that had once seemed important had been replaced by chosen relationships based on mutual respect and genuine affection. The intelligence community's adoption of new personnel security protocols based on Sarah's case had prevented similar conspiracies from succeeding against other cleared personnel. The training programs, screening procedures, and support services developed in response to her experience had strengthened the entire system's resilience against family manipulation and other personal vulnerabilities. International adoption of Sarah's personnel security innovations had enhanced protection for intelligence professionals worldwide. Her case had become a model for identifying and responding to family manipulation across different cultural and legal contexts. The lessons learned from her experience had applications that extended far beyond American intelligence agencies. Sarah's consulting work with Vincent's firm on international personnel security issues provided opportunities to share her expertise with allied intelligence services. The projects involved developing training programs, assessment tools, and response protocols that protected intelligence personnel from family manipulation and other personal vulnerabilities. The academic recognition of Sarah's contributions came through appointments as a visiting scholar at several universities and invitations to publish research on personnel security and family dynamics. Her work had established a new field of study that combined intelligence analysis, psychology, and family systems theory to understand and prevent manipulation of intelligence personnel. Sarah's daughter's first birthday celebration brought together the extended network of chosen family that had sustained Sarah through her transformation from crisis to triumph. The gathering included Pentagon colleagues, Vincent's network, Foundation supporters, and new friendships that continued to enrich Sarah's life. The isolation that had once made her vulnerable had been replaced by multiple communities that provided support and meaning. The future that stretched ahead for Sarah was filled with opportunities that reflected both her professional achievements and personal growth. The director position provided a platform for shaping America's cyber defense capabilities, while her foundation work offered chances to support intelligence personnel facing challenges similar to those she had overcome. Vincent's continued presence in Sarah's life as mentor, business partner, and chosen family member represented the enduring value of the alliance that had made her vindication possible. Their relationship had evolved from strategic cooperation to genuine affection that enriched both their lives and provided a model for meaningful professional and personal connections. Michael's support and partnership had been crucial to Sarah's ability to balance demanding professional responsibilities with rich personal relationships. Their marriage represented the integration of career ambitions with emotional fulfillment that had been missing from Sarah's life before the conspiracy forced her to examine her priorities and relationships. The legacy of Sarah's case extended far beyond her personal vindication to influence personnel security practices throughout the intelligence community and allied nations. The conspiracy that had been intended to destroy her career had instead generated innovations that protected countless other intelligence professionals from similar threats. Sarah's story had become a testament to the power of resilience, strategic thinking, and strong relationships in overcoming even the most devastating personal betrayals. The crisis that had seemed overwhelming at the time had ultimately provided opportunities for growth and achievement that exceeded her most ambitious dreams. The transformation from vulnerable analyst to recognized leader had been forged through challenges that revealed capabilities Sarah never knew she possessed. The family conspiracy that had threatened to end her career had instead catalyzed a rise to prominence that made her one of the most influential intelligence professionals of her generation. Standing in her office overlooking the Potomac River 15 years after the conspiracy began, Sarah reflected on the remarkable journey that had brought her to this moment of achievement and fulfillment. The woman who had once been isolated and vulnerable to family manipulation had become a leader whose innovations protected intelligence personnel worldwide. The secure phone on her desk displayed messages from intelligence professionals seeking her guidance on personnel security challenges, academic institutions requesting her participation in research projects, and international organizations inviting her to share her expertise at conferences. The recognition reflected both her technical achievements and the wisdom gained through surviving and thriving after devastating personal betrayal. The evening ahead included dinner with Vincent and Michael to celebrate the announcement of Sarah's latest honor selection as the first recipient of the intelligence community's Lifetime Achievement Award for Personnel Security Innovation. The recognition represented the culmination of a career that had been transformed by crisis into something far more meaningful and impactful than she had ever imagined possible. The conspiracy that David and Jennifer had crafted to destroy Sarah's career had instead provided the foundation for achievements that protected intelligence personnel worldwide, an advanced understanding of family manipulation and personal vulnerability. Their betrayal had revealed capabilities in Sarah that might have remained hidden without the crisis that forced her to fight for her career and reputation. The final irony of the conspiracy was that David and Jennifer's attempt to gain control of Sarah's inheritance had ultimately resulted in her achieving wealth and influence far beyond anything the family business could have provided. The settlement money had been the starting point for investments and philanthropic activities that generated both financial returns and meaningful contributions to intelligence community welfare. Sarah's legacy would extend far beyond her technical innovations and leadership achievements, to include the transformation of personnel security practices that protected future generations of intelligence professionals. The conspiracy that had threatened to end her career had instead ensured that her influence would continue long after her retirement. The woman who had entered Colonel Martinez's office 20 years earlier as an isolated analyst facing false allegations had emerged as one of the most respected and influential leaders in the intelligence community. The family who had tried to destroy her had instead provided the catalyst for achievements that exceeded their wildest imagination of success. The journey from crisis to triumph had been marked by challenges that revealed strength, wisdom, and capabilities that transformed not just Sarah's career, but her entire understanding of what was possible. The conspiracy had intended to destroy her, but instead it had revealed the leader she was destined to become and provided opportunities to build a life of meaning, achievement, and genuine fulfillment. The story of Dr. Sarah Chen represents one of the most compelling examples of how family betrayal can intersect with national security concerns, creating complex webs of personal and professional vulnerability that extend far beyond individual circumstances. Her experience as a Pentagon intelligence analyst who faced false psychological allegations from her own siblings illuminates critical issues about trust, manipulation, and resilience in high-stakes career environments. At its core, Sarah's story reveals the particular vulnerabilities faced by individuals in classified work environments where the nature of their contributions cannot be easily understood or validated by family members. Unlike conventional careers where achievements are visible and comprehensible to loved ones, intelligence work operates in shadows that create natural distance between professionals and their personal relationships. This isolation, while necessary for security, creates opportunities for manipulation by family members who may feel excluded from or resentful of career success they cannot fully comprehend. The psychological dynamics at play in Sarah's case reflect broader patterns of family manipulation that target high-achieving individuals whose success threatens existing family power structures. David and Jennifer's conspiracy against Sarah wasn't simply motivated by greed, though financial considerations were certainly central to their planning. Their actions reflected deeper psychological needs to diminish Sarah's achievements and restore their own sense of superiority within family hierarchies that her success had disrupted. The sophistication of their manipulation strategy demonstrates how family members can exploit intimate knowledge of personality traits and behavioral patterns to create convincing fabrications. Jennifer's medical credentials provided professional legitimacy to their psychological allegations, while David's legal background helped him structure their conspiracy to avoid obvious criminal liability. Their combination of professional expertise with personal knowledge created a nearly perfect storm of credible accusations that could have destroyed Sarah's career, if not for the intervention of unexpected allies. Vincent Wong's role in Sarah's vindication represents the crucial importance of professional networks and mentorship relationships in high-security careers. His decision to investigate Sarah's situation was motivated not just by personal compassion, but by strategic concerns about the precedent being set for intelligence community personnel security. His understanding that family manipulation represented a broader threat to national security integrity elevated Sarah's case from personal dispute to professional obligation. The alliance between Sarah and Vincent illustrates how crisis situations can reveal character traits and capabilities that might otherwise remain hidden. Sarah's analytical skills, which had always been her primary professional asset, were complemented by strategic thinking and crisis management abilities that emerged under pressure. Vincent's investigation methods and network of contacts provided resources that Sarah could never have accessed independently, but her insights and analytical capabilities enhanced his understanding of contemporary intelligence challenges. The legal proceedings that followed exposed the full scope of David and Jennifer's conspiracy, while establishing important precedents for protecting intelligence personnel from family manipulation. The criminal charges against David went beyond simple fraud to encompass threats to national security, reflecting the broader implications of attempts to compromise intelligence community personnel through personal vulnerabilities. Jennifer's professional consequences were equally severe, with her permanent loss of medical credentials serving as a warning to other professionals about the dangers of abusing their credentials for personal gain. The psychological evaluation process that initially threatened Sarah's career ultimately became a demonstration of her exceptional mental stability and professional competence. Dr. Rebecca Walsh's assessment revealed not just the absence of mental health issues, but the presence of extraordinary resilience and analytical capabilities that made Sarah ideally suited for leadership responsibilities. The evaluation process, designed to identify psychological vulnerabilities, instead highlighted psychological strengths that positioned Sarah for career advancement. Sarah's transformation from isolated analyst to recognized leader reflects broader lessons about the importance of building diverse professional networks and maintaining awareness of potential personal vulnerabilities. Her success in overcoming the conspiracy required not just proving her innocence but developing new skills and relationships that enhanced her overall professional effectiveness. The crisis forced her to become more strategic about career management and more intentional about building meaningful relationships. The financial aspects of the conspiracy reveal how family business arrangements can create vulnerabilities for individuals in high-security careers. Sarah's trusting approach to family financial matters made her susceptible to David's manipulations. But her intelligence background also provided her with analytical tools for understanding complex financial relationships once she became aware of the threat. The investigation exposed not just David's theft from family accounts but his connections to potentially criminal business networks that posed broader security concerns. The international implications of Sarah's case demonstrate how personnel security threats can have consequences that extend far beyond individual careers or even national boundaries. Family manipulation represents a vulnerability that foreign intelligence services actively seek to exploit, and Sarah's successful defense against such attacks provided valuable lessons for allied intelligence agencies facing similar threats. The training programs and protocols developed from her case have been adopted internationally, enhancing security for intelligence personnel worldwide. The technological dimensions of Sarah's later career achievements reflect how personal crisis can catalyze professional innovation. The cyber threat detection systems she developed drew on analytical methods refined during her personal ordeal, while her leadership of cyber defense initiatives reflected strategic thinking capabilities that emerged from navigating complex personal and professional challenges. Her technical innovations were enhanced by the wisdom gained through surviving and thriving after devastating personal betrayal. The philanthropic foundation that Sarah established represents the transformation of personal pain into systemic support for others facing similar challenges. Her foundation's work supporting intelligence personnel dealing with family manipulation, domestic threats, and other personal vulnerabilities reflects her understanding that individual cases often reflect broader systemic issues requiring institutional responses. The Foundation's success demonstrates how personal experience can inform effective advocacy and support programs. Sarah's marriage to Michael Torres illustrates how shared professional understanding can provide the foundation for personal relationships that enhance rather than compete with demanding career requirements. Their partnership was built on mutual respect for each other's professional achievements and understanding of the unique pressures facing intelligence personnel. Their relationship model demonstrates how high-security careers can be compatible with meaningful personal relationships when both partners understand and support each other's professional obligations. The mentorship relationship between Sarah and Vincent evolved from crisis response to ongoing collaboration that benefited both parties throughout their careers. Vincent's guidance helped Sarah navigate not just her immediate crisis, but longer-term career development challenges. While Sarah's insights enhanced Vincent's understanding of contemporary intelligence issues, their relationship model demonstrates the value of cross-generational professional relationships that provide mutual benefits and ongoing support. The academic recognition of Sarah's contributions reflects the broader intellectual implications of her case for understanding family dynamics, personnel security, and organizational psychology. Her work has established new fields of study that combine intelligence analysis with psychological and sociological research to better understand and prevent manipulation of high-security personnel. The scholarly attention her case has received demonstrates its significance beyond immediate practical applications. The cultural impact of Sarah's story within the intelligence community has been profound, providing inspiration and practical guidance for professionals facing similar challenges. Her case has become legendary within intelligence circles as an example of how resilience, strategic thinking, and strong professional relationships can overcome even the most devastating personal betrayals. The story serves as both cautionary tale about family vulnerabilities and inspirational example of triumph over adversity. The policy changes implemented throughout the intelligence community as a result of Sarah's case have strengthened personnel security systems against family manipulation and other personal threats. New screening procedures, training programs, and support services developed in response to her experience have prevented similar conspiracies from succeeding against other cleared personnel. The systemic improvements generated by her case have protected countless intelligence professionals from similar attacks. The long-term career trajectory that emerged from Sarah's crisis demonstrates how adversity can reveal capabilities and create opportunities that exceed original career expectations. Her rise from analyst to senior leadership positions was accelerated by the crisis management and strategic thinking skills that emerged during her personal ordeal. The conspiracy that was intended to destroy her career instead catalyzed advancement that might not have occurred through normal career progression. The broader implications of Sarah's case for understanding family dynamics and professional achievement extend beyond intelligence careers to any high-stakes profession where success creates power imbalances within family relationships. The psychological patterns revealed in her siblings' behavior reflect broader cultural issues about competition, resentment, and manipulation. Within families where individual achievement threatens existing hierarchies, the resilience factors that enabled Sarah's recovery and subsequent success provide valuable insights for other professionals facing similar challenges. Her ability to maintain analytical objectivity while navigating emotional trauma, combined with her willingness to accept help and build new relationships, created the foundation for not just surviving the crisis, but emerging stronger and more capable than before. The justice achieved in Sarah's case, while personally satisfying, represents broader principles about accountability and consequences for those who abuse family relationships for personal gain. David and Jennifer's severe legal and professional consequences serve as deterrents to others who might consider similar manipulations, while also validating the seriousness with which society treats threats to national security personnel. The transformation in Sarah's personal life from isolation to rich community engagement demonstrates how crisis can reveal the importance of relationships and lead to more fulfilling approaches to work-life balance. Her marriage, friendships, and chosen family relationships provided the personal foundation that enhanced her professional effectiveness and created meaning beyond career achievement. Looking toward the future, Sarah's continuing influence through leadership positions, foundation work, and mentorship activities ensures that the lessons learned from her experience will continue benefiting others long after her direct involvement ends. Her legacy extends beyond individual achievement to systemic improvements in personnel security and support systems for intelligence professionals facing personal challenges. The story of Dr. Sarah Chen ultimately represents triumph of integrity, intelligence, and resilience over manipulation, betrayal, and abuse of trust. Her journey from vulnerable analyst to influential leader provides both practical guidance and inspirational example for anyone facing seemingly overwhelming personal or professional challenges. The conspiracy that threatened to destroy her instead revealed capabilities that transformed not just her own life but the systems and communities she served throughout her remarkable career. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.